You're listening to NFRN The Drive, your place for NFRN, NASCAR, and motorsport news. Hello again everybody, Colin Denton here with another episode of NFRN The Drive, and yes, we are finally back. It has been quite a while, and of course, technical difficulties, as always, seem to be striking us, but we are finally back, and we've got two races slated for tonight. The Champions League up first, and the Elite Cup Series after that. And we're going to try to keep this episode of The Drive short so we can get to that racing action. And also, we don't have a ton to talk about because it is the off-season. The most we can talk about is some of the silly season moves that have progressed forward since the last time we talked. And obviously, we had that live episode on Championship Weekend. We had a lot of drivers in for interviews to talk about their season so far, talk about who they thought would win the Cup Championship, and we obviously know who that is now. And we don't have our last race winner, Kenny Knox, in with us today for interview, but we can look back on those race highlights. All started off with Reese Butcher on the pole, Stuart Gradden on the outside. Donnie Moore gets caught with a passing penalty right off the initial start. He falls all the way back to the tail end of the lead lap, with Reese Butcher really pulling out in front of the rest of the field, but coming on green flag pit stops, his car stalls on pit road, leaves him further back in the field, and pretty much simultaneously, Gerard O'Run, who had just taken the lead, seems to blow a tire and run out of fuel almost at the same time. Obviously, this is just as the green flag pit cycles are happening, so he probably needed to come down there, but on the next restart, Kenny Knox with the lead. NASCAR Fan 19 with a strange start, doesn't get penalized though. TJ Smith goes off the front bumper of Zachary Fitzwater Sr., and this is where a lot of the controversy happens. And also, Eric Monaco spins around Mitchell Mark, which is coming back to the caution flag. Mark will lose a couple spots there, but here's where the controversy occurs. TJ Smith comes up on Porkins, bumps him in the back. In fact, bumps kind of an understatement. And then Smith comes up, rubs the door of Porkins as we speed up the footage, pushes him toward pit road, and ends up putting himself into the end of pit road wall. Smith gets 3 races probation, that's from the Amateur Cup Series races, for that incident. Van Arsdale then goes for a slide. He's going to be okay as he goes through the field, but Bright's going to run into Baskinger and Stephen Willie as he ends up in turns 1 and 2. And then Bruno De Barros and Jack Porkins make contact on the same lap. And De Barros is going to run back into Porkins heading into turn number 1. That takes out Aiden Shepard and Johnny Gardner at the same time. And then on the next restart, Noah Carr's a lapped car going to the inside of NASCAR Fan 19, and that is huge for the sake of the 64 contending for this victory. Nick Smith, also a lapped car, getting to his inside, and Kenny Knox is going to run away with this one. Julio Caesar is going to get bumped by Brad Stover and take out Tyler Markell, having a great day, looking for his best finish of the season, and that's not going to happen. But Kenny Knox is going to be the one that ultimately takes the checkered flag. NASCAR Fan 19, another runner-up finish. And a look at the final results from that one. A huge day for guys that are part-time competitors. Kenny Knox with the victory. Dwayne Calloway already won in the Amateur Cup Series, finishing 3rd. Cody Hagan and Philip Frye with some great top 5 runs, and Stuart Gradden continues to extend his points lead over John Arndt with his 6th place finish, Arndt finishing 10th. Julio Caesar highly impacted by that last lap accident, falling all the way to 22nd and falls to 3rd in the point standings. And a little bit more information on the TJ Smith probation that obviously came about with the contact with Jack Porkins. Smith, after the race, said that he was having steering issues, and that was quickly refuted by the league. They weren't able to necessarily look and see if the steering issues were legitimate because the car was so crunched in with the heavy contact that Smith put into the end of the pit road wall, but they said that if he was having steering issues, he needed to just brake the car and let it be towed back. Obviously, he didn't do that and ran into Porkins multiple times, which led them to believe that it was an intentional act for whatever might have happened between him and Porkins, because even our crews were not able to determine any specific event that brought about the contact. So Smith will be on probation for the period of the next 3 Amateur Cup Series races, and that does include any Elite Cup Series competitions that he might take part in, including this upcoming race at Riki Raceway. And incidental contact, which is deemed by the league, whether or not it is a an intentional move or if it just happens to be a racing incident, or any contact he might be involved in that is not his fault, that will not apply to this probation, and there is no word on what the next level of penalty might be if the probation is broken. Of course, the last time we did have an episode of The Drive, we were in the midst of championship weekend, and ultimately it was Martin Truex Jr. who came out on top. We had a lot of drivers of our own league that said that we could expect Truex Jr. to be on top of the podium at the end of the season, and of course that is how it turned out as you take a look at the results from that final Homestead race. And Martin Truex Jr. did win in addition to getting that championship. Kyle Busch coming up second, Larson finishing third, even though he was knocked out early in the playoff system. Kevin Harvick fourth place in the race, third in the standings, and Brad Keselowski, the last driver among those in the playoffs, finishing seventh. And that weekend we also saw the crowning of two champions that also served as kind of a promotion for both of them. William Byron winning the Xfinity Championship. He'll move into the Cup Series after one season in the Xfinity and winning that championship. He'll go to Hendrick Motorsports and inherit the number 24 car for that team. And also Christopher Bell winning the Truck Series in his second full-time season. He'll move to Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity program next year as well. And so that's going to be very exciting to see a lot of driver changes, and there has been a lot, and we do have some more information on drivers that are making changes. Michael McDowell was confirmed to be joining Front Row Motorsports, and he'll be alongside David Reagan, who's been with the team, or at least back with the team for a year now. Landon Castle, we knew that he was leaving, but we still do not know his destination. Obviously, the amount of rides that could be available to him are running thin, and we'll see what might happen in the future. And obviously it might turn out to be he might end up back in the Xfinity Series. JD Motorsports had said that they have vacancies. They haven't re-signed Garrett Smithley yet, or at least announced it, and there's also the 15 car that whether or not it's start and park will be up to that team. But Castle does have a relationship with that team. It could end up being that he goes back to that team given his situation right now. And we also learned that Danica Patrick, who wanted to run the Daytona 500 and Indy 500 and had talks with Chip Ganassi, those talks have stalled, and so it doesn't appear that Patrick has that ride that she's looking for at the moment. And again, the rides are running slim, and obviously if any team wants to pick her up, they could run a one-off ride if they have the space, but it's going to be pretty hard for the teams that she could be looking at. And obviously I'm not sure about what kind of sponsorship she would be carrying that would bring the money into those teams that would be an incentive for them to sign her on for a race. We'll have to see where she lands, but not looking too good for the former Daytona 500 pole sitter right now. And moving on to some more racing news, and we do have some sad news to report first. Barry Dodson, the crew chief of Rusty Wallace during the 1989 championship run, died on Wednesday at age 64, confirmed by his brother John. In addition to crew chiefing Wallace, he also had stints with drivers Tim Richmond and Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip. No cause of death was confirmed by the family, but we do keep them in our thoughts and prayers during this time. And moving on from that, Richard Childress encountered some masked men that were attempting to break into his home late Sunday night. That was around 10:30. They were three masked men, majority of their faces covered. Childress heard a crashing in the lower level of the house, grabbed a handgun and fired shots at the men. There's no other information on whether there are any suspects regarding this situation or if anyone was taken into custody. Also, Disney and Fox's mega deal, where Walt Disney Company bought a major portion of Fox entities, could have an impact on NASCAR coverage. They are, or the Fox network, with the sports portion that they still have, are thinking that they're going to become more dependent on sports for their main network, which could mean that more NASCAR races will be broadcast on the main Fox channel rather than FS1 or FS2. And the current TV deal that NASCAR has in place with both Fox and NBC runs through 2024, so it will be interesting to see how the new deal between Disney and Fox will impact how Fox goes about broadcasting future races. Levine Family Racing unveiled their 2018 paint scheme with the new sponsor Procore, which will sponsor multiple races in 2018 and 2019. There is a picture of the car with Casey Kane unveiling it at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Air Force also announced that they are extending their partnership with Richard Petty Motorsports. This is their 10th consecutive season partnering with the team and their 18th year in the Cup Series. They will be on the 43 car for 2 races next season. South Point Hotel and Casino are sponsoring Daniel Hemrick for the entire Xfinity season. Of course, the South Point brand, part of the Brendan Gaughan family, carried that sponsor throughout his tenure with Richard Childress Racing. But even though he is no longer with the team, they are still supporting Hemrick in his Xfinity adventure and trying to see what he can do after finishing 4th in standings this year. Aspen Dental will be exiting the sport in 2018. They had deals with Danica Patrick and Stuart Haas Racing. They even filled gaps that were left by Nature's Bakery after the sponsorship fiasco and lawsuit that came in 2017. They expanded their sponsorship, but they said that they are going with a different approach in their marketing, so they will not be doing any sponsorship in 2018. Speaking of Danica Patrick, she and boyfriend Ricky Stenhouse Jr. have split after 5 years together. Stenhouse was at the award ceremony late last month and came without Danica Patrick. Patrick revealed in a recent ESPN documentary that she had her eggs frozen and wanted kids, but wanted to be married as well. This relationship came after her first marriage to Paul Hospenthal, which was 7 years before she divorced and had no children with him. Kyle Petty revealed on Twitter that he and wife Morgan are expecting their first child, and the due date for that is in June. So congratulations to Kyle and Morgan Petty. Also, Kyle Larson is engaged to his girlfriend, Caitlin Sweet. They are on their way to New Zealand for a little vacation with their son Owen, and they are expecting their second child in May. So good news for the Larson family. All right, that is all the NASCAR racing news we have for you today, and get into a little bit of NFRN stuff before we get into the main races. We did make a few track changes in the schedule. So we moved some stuff around for the sake of the raceability of the tracks. There were some issues with the tracks that were chosen preseason. After review, we realized there wasn't a lot of passing going on in some of these racetracks. So we changed up a little bit and to see if we can make some of the racing better and provide more exciting racing. So Lyddon Hill, which was a Elite Cup Series track only, is going to be changed to Calder Park. So moving from England over to Australia, different ends of the world, but still going to be another road course, which will also host the 3rd round of the Champions League, and that will come after the Elite Cup Series race. So Calder Park hosting the Elite Cup Series race, race 9, I believe, and also the 3rd round of the Champions League. Also, Thompson International Speedway is being shifted into Pigs Speed Dome. That was an Amateur Cup Series standalone race. I believe that Thompson was more adapted to modified racing, and obviously it didn't really work out for stock cars. So we're moving to a different track, and that will be Pig Speed Dome. We also unveiled that we will be racing in the Truck Series at the dirt track of Oswego up in New York, and I don't believe that we've unveiled that on a broadcast yet, but that is our dirt track, which will be the 5th race of the season for the Truck Series. And it's going to be a different qualifying format, a lot like how NASCAR does it when the trucks go to Eldora. There will be 6 heat races that will contain 6 full-time drivers each, and then any amount of the part-timers that we have left will be spread out equally among those heat races. The top part-time driver in each heat race will qualify for the main event. There is no last chance qualifying, just for the sake of how this is distributed, and how each driver finishes in their heat will determine the final starting order for the main feature events that will count for points and for the championship standings. And although we've probably said it before, we would like to remind everybody that we do have a dedicated NFRN Discord server. You can find the link to that in the first line of the description. A great way to just talk with other drivers about anything you'd like to, but also a great way to find out information on the NFRN series very quickly. So feel free to go join that. Instant invite link down below in the description. So we are very excited to get those races in, and those will be in the near future. But of course, tonight we have Riki Raceway, which has been a track that we've been to in the past. Race number 17 of the Elite Cup Series last season, and it's coming back for a return stint. And we're going to see if it's any more exciting or any less dangerous than it was last year, because obviously big wrecks happened there last time. But it's time to go racing. It's time to finally get back into the league. So, for RVN and NFRN, my name is Colin Denton. Good night and good riddance.
Louder!